sit there and smile.
And you stand in force, but you're not protecting us. You're killing us.
Imagine one time never being able to see your child get married, never being able to see your grandchildren, never being able to grow up and know that his life was valued by somebody.
Why do they hate us so much? We just want the life that y'all got, ain't killing nobody. We just trying to get to the top, single us out. Now wonder we don't with the cops, but I'm black, so I might get shot. Not too long ago I graduated. Black man in my city, I ain't supposed to make it. 19, got big dreams, trying to find my way on my own. Gun in the badge, got the right to take it. I got the right to say this. Freedom of speech, here to protect, but we walk around scared of police. Nobody's perfect, to be honest. Getting out of hand, 5 times in the chest. Some I don't understand, discriminate my whole generation. Tatted up, oh God, dreads, man, they think we crazy. Can't get a job, so I'm selling. Who the gon' pay me? I gotta feed my baby. You didn't know it, now you know this what we go through daily. Yeah.
God, please help us. They ain't giving us justice. We so tired of fighting on our own. We so tired of fighting all alone. God, please help us. They ain't giving us justice. We so tired of fighting on our own. We so tired of fighting all alone.
Tell me how I got the same opportunity that you got with my daddy on dough. Mama put money in them slots, plus the rent pass due. Kitchen ain't got no food, don't dress nice, so they laugh when I walk through the school. Wanna play ball, but I ain't good enough to make the team. Got this phone, got the connect, he got the keys. Tell me to work a 9 to 5, pay rate $7.25. Let's be real here, Scott. Off that I can't even survive, so what I've been up in a little trouble. I'm just a kid in the ghetto, you don't know my struggle. My pain deep, no sleep, it's on another level that is getting to me. Want me to pay for my education, I thought it was free. You white and I'm black, but you just like me. No justice, no peace, we just wanna be free. You white and I'm black, but you just like me. No justice, no peace, we just wanna be free. Go.
God, please help us. They ain't giving us justice. We so tired of fighting on our own. We so tired of fighting all alone. God, please help us. They ain't giving us justice. We so tired of fighting on our own. We so tired of fighting all alone.
But he's going to matter to all of you eventually. And you're going to understand that. It's only a matter of time. Because understand, while you hide behind your back, God sees everything. And you can't hide from that.
God, please help us. They ain't giving us justice. We so tired of fighting on our own. We so tired of fighting all alone. God, please help us. They ain't giving us justice. We so tired of fighting on our own. We so tired of fighting all alone. God, please help us. They ain't giving us justice. We so tired of fighting on our own. We so tired of fighting all alone. God, please help us. They ain't giving us justice. We so tired of fighting on our own. We so tired of fighting all alone.
This is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
I'm sick of people being victimized by criminal cops. Psychopathic predators terrorizing neighborhood blocks. Equipped with pepper spray, mace, cuffs, tasers, and glocks. They like serial killers acting out subliminal thoughts. Forget what you taught. These cops have got a license to kill. Witness intimidation means that they can use it at will. Code of silence means that the pigs will never let out a squeal. And if they go to court, they know the judge will make them a deal. For real, that's why they stopping me. deal, for real. That's why they stopping me, locking me up and stopping me, confiscating my property, darkening my demography, making the poor commodities, profiting off of poverty, enforcing policies, supporting prison economies. Yeah, no one makes money when the violence stops. Hate and brutality's the way to make a criminal crop. Blood in the gutters, how the rich butter they bread at the top. And that's why this is what happens when you call the cops. Come on.
This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm mixed up in the system and these pigs is trying to murder me. They mace me, they tase me, they trained them to hate me, degrade and detain me and chains just like slavery. Hands up, face down, left hook right quick. Throw you down, hold you down, smack you with that nightstick. Night shift, riding round, see you with your J's on. You'll get sprayed on over Skittles, word to Trayvon. All the people saying is it's crazy down in Florida. What you saying is you playing, it's the same in California. They ganging like they banging and they'll hang you down in Georgia. Frame you in a case for what you say without a lawyer. Swarming with no warning, now they sorting through your residence. Stormed in with no warrant, now they snorting all the evidence. You better just learn to dodge a box, cause this is what happens when you call the cops.
Come on, this is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. Yeah. This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
We got a baby in the living room.
Get the grenades, pull a pin, throw it in the crib, blow him away.
There's a homeless guy camping here.
Well, tell him to pack. When he gets up and starts leaving, shoot the bum in the back.
This guy rolled through a stop sign.
That's drugs for sale. Get some doctors to rape him, send him a bill in the mail.
We got a black man knocking on a white woman's door.
With 10 shots point blank, he ain't gonna knock no more. Look, the problem starts at the academy. New cadets are indoctrinated with a military mentality. With them as the soldiers and us as the people they're battling. We're either collateral damage or combat fatalities. Either way, the reality's that it's not gonna stop. Cause this is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on, this is what happens when you call the cops.
This is what happens. Say what? Happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call.
Yeah. This is what happens. Happens when you call the cops. This is what happens. When you all get shot.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Keepin and Hunnid with your host, Diedre B. and Sincere. Small technical difficulties, as always. I am going to get a hold of the co-host again, our college dropped. I would like to just bring attention to the beginning song was a tribute to Tony Robinson, who we'll be talking about tonight, and that was done by Trey Money. You can find it on YouTube. Trey Money, and the song is Tony Robinson Tribute. A really, really powerful song, and that's why I decided to go ahead and put it on tonight. So what we're going to be talking about today is the May 6th shooting of unarmed Tony Robinson. Tony Robinson was a 19-year-old biracial teenager who there was a 911 call that came in on the fact that there was a disturbance. Allegedly, because he'll never get trial, allegedly he was running in and out of traffic, had assaulted a couple of people after he had ingested mushrooms, which is a psychedelic, or they call them shrooms. It's a psychedelic. He also was smoking marijuana, which has never been proven to cause any kind of aggressive behavior. However, the mushrooms, I've never taken them, but I have seen someone on them before, and they do act kind of different, erratic, just, the behavior is kind of odd. But so that is allegedly what was going on, and Officer Matthew Kenny had arrived at the scene after a couple of 911 calls of these incidents that were happening with him, and within 17 to 20 seconds, he was shot and killed by police. Now, they had said that, he had hit the officer, and the proof was at the 8th step, there were 12 in total, and he had hit his head into the wall, and you could see the dent there. they did not document or say anything about injuries as far as marks on the face if you would have hit him that hard, or lumps on the head or anything like that. But if you see the dash cam video, you see that as he is shooting, he is walking outside of the house, and the incident happened on the second floor, and there are 12 steps. So there are a lot of things that are kind of curious about this, that I don't believe that it happened the way that they said it did totally. So I'd like to get some people's perspective on this. If you have Skype me at Diedre, Diedre space B, so that we can have a conversation. Because the district attorney came out yesterday and said it was justified. Now, Mr. Kenny had also been involved in a police-involved shooting a couple years back of a guy who had called in and said there was somebody sitting on the porch and had a gun. So it happened to be the gentleman that called actually happened to be the one with the gun, and it was allegedly suicide by cop. I think in the end, what had happened is they said it wasn't even a real gun, and he was suffering from depression. His ex-wife had actually called in prior to the shooting and said, hey, he called in and said there's someone with a gun. It's his. He's depressed. He's having some issues. So they were kind of aware of the situation prior. So should this have happened a second time? He wasn't justified, or he was found justified the first time, and now there's a second time in which he's been found justified. Is that going to start being a trend? I know in Baltimore, Marilyn Mosby had come out and said that she definitely was going to pursue charges on these officers. And as you see, like, the police are all up in arms, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and trying to cite conflicts of interest and trying to, cite problems with the case. It's not disputed that he wasn't buckled in. It's not disputed that he asked for medical attention and didn't get it. Those are accounts of the officers themselves. That is against policy. So it's not really disputed that they violated policy on any level, but everybody's all upset about, within law enforcement, about these charges being filed. Should that be the case? I mean, is it because they're so used to getting away with it? Or is it because of the fact that there's really a justifiable case? Said if anybody could, Skype in on me, I'm going to be having Bobby Pugh shortly. My other host, Mr. Norman, is on now. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. So I was just talking about the Tony Robinson case, which I had sent you some more information on it, on where the district attorney found that it was justified. Do you think this is becoming more of a trend? I mean, I know Marilyn Mosby said she was filing charges, and in the Ikai Gurley case, they said they are filing charges. But do you think that this is becoming more of a trend?
Yeah, it's becoming more of a trend, and it's also, can you hear me clearly?
I can definitely hear you.
Okay, very good. I'm on another device. I apologize for the delay in getting on. We'll talk about what happened to my laptop here in a second. But yeah, it's becoming more of a trend. I mean, definitely. I mean, for us to say that it's not becoming a trend would be for us to be ignoring a pattern. So, anything that becomes a pattern after a time, you can definitely say it's a trend. We're seeing more and more, situations where the officers are being allowed pretty much a grace period. If any one of us are ever caught in a violent situation that results in someone's death, any of us as regular citizens, immediately we're going to be charged and, thrown into prison, especially if we don't have legal representation. And we're seeing with a lot of these officers, they get this grace period, they get this time. And within this time, a lot of times we see a story is constructed, a story that's acceptable to the public. It's very palatable. Everyone can take it with as much impact, with as least impact as possible so that they can still get these officers off and not have to, recoup any financial damages or anything like that through the city. But it's a pattern. They're protecting the officers, and they're doing a damn good job of it because I believe we're not demanding more, and we're not doing it with more force. We have to be more forceful in demanding this accountability because they're being able to sweep it under the rug rather easily, if you ask me. I think we can all agree that the legal system is difficult. And it's a lengthy process. But I think we can also all agree that we all think it should be a fair process. And, the lengthy part of what we're seeing happening is something that people don't understand. They don't understand why cops are getting away with crimes and then they get this grace period and they get these paid vacations and stuff. And then, there's no justice at the end of that time. So they go on vacation, then they come back and they go back to work patrolling the same streets where they just took a life. There's no healing going on in our communities anymore. And until we can actually buckle down on the justice system and get better results, healing is not going to happen. Tensions are going to rise. This is a pattern, and it's getting out of control.
I definitely think that. And then, one of our other issues is when a prosecutor has enough, loyalty to the community that she serves, not just the police department, but the community in which she serves, to go ahead and file charges. The police are up in arms. Like, they are nuts. They are trying to find ways in order to circumvent this process. Like, they are insulted that justice might actually be pursued. They admitted through their own report that he was not buckled. They also admitted that he did not get medical attention. So those two things are what they are being, charged with, other than whether or not the knife was a switchblade. Which
the knife wasn't a switchblade, and it doesn't matter if it was. It was never brandished, So at the end of the day, I don't care if you had a gun. If you never pulled it out, it was never a threatening situation. You know what I mean? It just, those kind of details don't matter. They muddy the waters, and they cloud the atmosphere of what reality is. You and I both know that.
Well,
but,
right. And what they're trying to say is that the arrest, they're trying to say that the arrest, because the knife was not illegal, that the arrest was illegal. And so if they ended up stopping him on what is called a Terry stop, which is a brief investigation for investigative purposes to see why he was running, and then they found that he was in the commission of a crime, technically they could arrest him for doing that. But if the knife was not a switchblade or not illegal under Baltimore city or county laws, because the state law is different than where he was at, then they did not legally arrest him. If it was illegal under those laws, then they would have had the right. And one of the major offenses for two of them is the fact that they illegally arrested him, so it's false imprisonment, so on and so forth. But I just can't believe how these officers are so mad, and they're putting all of these personal attacks on this prosecutor, which I don't think is fair. She's doing what she's supposed to do, and I mean, that's what she's supposed to do and allow due process to take place. Freddie Gray and Tony Robinson would never get their due process.
Me and you met, and we came together over an issue that we're still passionate about, and that's Philip White. And, I definitely want to spend some time talking about that today, because I'm feeling like, and I know you feel the same way, justice is not being served in that situation. We're waiting for the prosecutor, Jennifer Webb McCrae, to step up and to actually do the right thing and make something happen. 6 weeks with no autopsy results, it's ridiculous at this point. You know what I mean? We've reached the realm of absolutely ridiculous, because it's obviously an attempt to try to create a narrative. We've already done enough. Are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
All right, we're all here now.
Yay.
Yay, we're all here now. Very good.
Party just started.
Yes. And who do we have on the line with us?
Go ahead, introduce yourself, big guy.
This is Tripp, Pugh, radio host, savant, all around badass.
I like this guy already. Well, it's good to meet you, Tripp. I'm sincere. Welcome to the show. Diedre did tell me a little bit about you. So right now, you just came in the middle of conversation. Do you know anything about Philip White?
Philip White, no.
Okay. Diedre's going to share some information with you. I would if I was on my laptop, but that's a different story. I'm on a different device. But she's going to share some information with you. But we were talking about, of course, a lot of these police brutality cases. And the one I was referencing was Philip White. That's where me and Diedre actually began to link up and connect with each other. Okay. And he was a victim on March 31st of 2015 of police brutality at the hands of Vineland Police Department in New Jersey. And where he was, attacked while he was unconscious by a police officer and also bit by the police officer's dog.
I did hear about that, yeah.
Okay, very good. And the autopsy results, this is going on 6 weeks later, and the autopsy results are still not out. And, I've placed the video out showing the obvious crimes that were committed and, frame by frame, actions of Philip being unconscious and the police officer raining down blows on him and the dog biting him. These are all things that are crimes. We're normal people. We understand that. So I guess my whole purpose of having the conversation is they're taking so much time because they're trying to construct a narrative to fit their agenda. And just like they've done in this Tony Robinson case, they've come out with a narrative that fits their agenda, and it makes it hard to dispute it. But I think we're successful in the Philip White case here because we've already helped to construct that narrative from day one. So it's going to make it harder for them to convince a public that's already knowing of what's going, taking place, that something else has taken place. I don't think that they're going to be able to pull it off, and I think they're trying like hell to do it, even though it's 6 weeks into it and we have no autopsy results.
Well, a way that we've constructed the narrative is because there is an actual video showing him being beaten while unconscious and being mauled by the police. And then also video of, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this, Tripp, and also a video of a cop going, "Hey, you filmed it? I need to confiscate your phone."
Yeah, we've seen a high rise in that. The one thing about at least the handful of recent brutality deals is that, hey, we're finally getting some results. The overall perspective is getting shifted from, these, of course, mainstream America is going to go, these thugs and these hooligans and whatnot. I mean, you guys know stuff comes across my desk every day of people of all races, all genders, all different mental capacities, etc., children involved. This is another day in the park for us. I wish I didn't have to report it like that, but it just so happens to be. But the one thing that we are starting to get some leeway on is some individual accountability. And it's finally starting to bite them in the ass. And if anything else changes, I think that is the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, is that there will be individual accountability held. So if you're not ironclad. I mean, we all know everybody does their best to make evidence disappear or shift the story. And, never forget that the mainstream media is on the side. I mean, when we talk about how many dollars are under the belts of the police, judges, prosecutors, mainstream media, we'll spin it any way we want it, and we'll condemn those who we feel like condemning. Unless there's ironclad video evidence or audio evidence on the encounter to where, either it won't get covered hugely by mainstream media, or they'll just kind of, sweep it under the rug, so to speak.
What about the big fit that police throw when they finally do get held accountable? It's like, they've gotten away with it for so long that all of a sudden out of nowhere, oh my God, they have no idea what to do because now they're being treated as an average citizen, which I think that if it would be illegal for us to do the things that police do, it should be illegal for them. If I didn't buckle my child into a seatbelt and they ended up dying because of it, I'm getting charged for that because it is the law that I have to buckle them in. And just like in the Freddie Gray case, I think that's reasonable.
Right.
If I didn't give my daughter or my children, or you didn't give your children medical attention when it was needed, then we would be charged with that. I don't think it's unreasonable that it would happen for them too.
And I try to do the best that I can to cover each case and the overall agenda here, but it's very hard, and there's a lot of different layers that go untouched when we talk about these issues, because it's every case is an individual case basis. We have to take them as they come. Of course, not every case is going to be the same. That's always a factor. However, I think that we are finally making headway on covering the overall issue the way that it needs to be. And here's something that's just come out in the past couple days as well that I didn't even see coming, but looking at the big picture is even more terrifying, that this has become part of the quote blue line culture, that they can get away with it. And this is the way, hey, you're given a badge and a gun and go crack some skulls there, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, that's the mentality that we've known for so long now. And now that this is coming back and every single one of these is making national news, almost every big one is making national news. Now we're talking about federalizing police forces. Now that's the end of posse comitatus, and if anybody knows anything about that, and militarizing and federalizing police forces is not the way to go. How about we just hold these bastards individually accountable? That's the big start.
I actually want to chime in there and say something. I absolutely agree with you, and that's what I've been harping on these last few weeks is we have to be careful of what's going on, because, people are demanding justice, but I think that the way that, mainstream media is going to say that they're delivering justice is by getting the Justice Department involved. And of course, you want to get DHS involved. You want to federalize the police. And a lot of that stuff we know is going on right now behind closed doors anyway, with the amount of equipment that's being supplied by the federal government. But, it just goes to show that they're using layers upon layers of to what I call psychological warfare against the public, to pretty much deceive and to trick them into doing, what they want to happen, which is the federalization of police. And that's a scary thing, because most people, in my opinion, this may be a harsh assessment, but most people are not mentally capable of understanding that or pointing out and seeing it, because they have so many layers going on in their own life that they're just pretty much believing mainstream media and they're going with whatever they're told on the TV and they're not thinking any deeper than that. So these guys are getting away with crimes right before our eyes. And,
Sure.
pretty soon we're going to wake up one day and we're going to be in a police state.
And we're already pretty much there. And there is another major issue that I want to talk about that is, forgive me for jumping to this conclusion, but I really think that it's retarding the process for those that are not involved in I'll just say in the underground part of like what we do, that don't look at all of the different cases that come across, in our news feeds and in our overall media circles. Because, I talk to a lot of people of all races, religions, etc. And the worst part about this is racism and counter racism of the whole deal. And it's like, what gets shown the spotlight on? White cops, young black males. While that should be no new news to anybody, and especially people that have grown up in inner city areas. I grew up in Atlanta. I mean, that's something that's been around for decades, right? But what we're not seeing is that that's being treated like that for every part of the American citizenry. Why does the mainstream media not shine the light on some of these other issues? When it's a child, when it's a mentally disabled person, when it's a white person or a Hispanic person, it's never.
Well, I'd like this, actually answer. That's an easy answer, and that's set out as a matter of division.
Right.
It's the same. Right. It's the same focus of why are there Democrats, why are there Republicans, why are there conservatives, why are there liberals? It's always a matter of division, and if you can pit the two sides, you can always keep it an argument going, an argument ensuing, while you can push policies and agendas through that argument, and by taking neither side yourself. So it's an issue that most people, I think, in the public don't understand, and I think that again goes to show the levels and the layers that people go to the finer information. You're absolutely correct. We are in different circles of media circles and a different level of understanding than most people. And I think the general question now is, how do we bring these people that are so mainstream media brainwashed into the levels of understanding that we have, and into actually wanting to fight to get their country back? How do we do that?
Right. And there's a lot of individual conversation that has to go on. And sadly enough, just because that is the hot button issue, I'll just say, because it's absolutely true as well, is that a lot of people know my firm stances and beliefs on things because I'm quite public about it. But, I've been talking to a lot of people that aren't, they aren't part of media or freedom movements or anything like that. Let's just say, for instance, I've talked to several people that I grew up with, that I went to high school with, black folks that have commented on some of this recent stuff. And I'm like, look, guys, like the race issue is I know that people feel very deeply about that. And I'm like, I'm your white friend. All right. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm telling you, look, we're homies, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, let me spit it to you like this. This is not the hardest line issue. And as long as everybody wants to make it about race, nothing will get done. You want to talk? This is what's being blown up, man. That's what's being blown up.
It's an economic issue.
Yeah, that is another huge part about it as well. I feel like, I mean, in the past couple of years, I've done
that doesn't get discussed. Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel about that?
What about the socioeconomic aspect of it?
Yes.
I think that for somebody like me, I've done very well for myself the past 2 years. I never thought that I would make this big of a jump in a short amount of time. But I'm just a kid from Atlanta. You know what I mean? But coming into this, I do see how it is easier, even as public as I am with my anti-police stuff and just overall anti-political and authoritarian rule openly. I do see how it's easier to hide under the cover of night with that. And for people to be, I suggest everybody be smart about it if they're going to openly be about that. And, you know, I've been through all different walks of life too. You know, I didn't I just stumbled into this, man. I know what it's like to be broke and not have a pot.
That's right.
And you know what I mean? I've been through multiple cycles in my life, but I do think that there is another bit about it that there is always going to be a handful of people that don't want to improve their situation, and they want to blame any and everything, even if that is like, I've got people to blame when I was down and out. You know what I mean? I'd be like, look, if I was a lazy asshole, I could probably, you know, I'd feel a lot better about it because I knew I would only have myself to blame. But I had a lot of people contribute to me being broke, but I was never not willing to get out there and grind. So, you know, I did what I had to do. I hope everybody else would do the same. And even if it is true, don't let that get you down. You know, I mean, I guess that's really, I know so many people that are still living in the same situation instead of going, man, why don't you take the family and get the hell out of there, man? You know, like, I mean, I know how hard shit goes, but I mean, how bad does it have to get before you say, even if we're going to be down and out, we might just need a change of scenery too, you know?
Wow. You know what? I have to tell you something. That's a major point that you hit on, and I'll tell you why I believe it's a major point. I was just I went back to New Jersey this past weekend. I live in Tennessee now, and I'm from New Jersey. So I went home for Mother's Day weekend and met up with a few people and talked about a few things, and you know, for Philip White. And the whole time I'm there, you know, people ask me, well, how do you like it down there? What's going on in Tennessee? Like, do you like Chattanooga? Is it a good place? And all I can tell them is, you know, and I come from a military background, so I'm used to moving around. But I tell them, look, you have to get out of your comfort zone, especially when your comfort zone is not comfortable anymore. If you're not even comfortable in your own comfort zone and you're being pushed out of it, maybe you can do yourself a favor and just leave and find a way to reconnect with reality. And, you know, I think it goes to, I think we have to also speak about brainwashing. I'm just going to be honest with you. You know, you have a people that a lot of folks that are so scared, you know, they have family ties. They have a family history with an area. You know, they just don't understand how much just changing their scenery can benefit their lives, their children's lives, and help to progress them and move them forward. So they stick to what they're used to because they don't want to move because of fear. You know, that fear of change it's crippling a lot of people, and you know, it's making them feel like they can't do it. And that's really not the case because, you know, coming here, I'll be honest, it wasn't easy. It was hard. You know, I had to go through the struggles to actually, you know, I lived with people when I first got here, a couple people, and it took me about 6 months to actually get my own first place. Now, me and my lady are okay. So, you know, it just goes to show it can be done. It's about perseverance.
How hard do you want to work to persevere? I came down here. I had a Jeep. Everything that I owned. I had a 32-inch old school, like an old tube TV, a 32-inch TV, some DVDs, a handful of CDs, and some clothes. I think
that's right.
I think I had probably a case of bourbon and 2 cartons of cigarettes on top of that. And
at least you had a Jeep.
Right. And I probably had like $600 or $700 in my pocket when I moved down here to Florida. That was it.
Sure.
You know,
Well, I'm saying at least you had bourbon. Jeez, he said Jeep. I'm saying bourbon. I think the bourbon is what would have got me through.
But that's what I had. I said, all right. I was under 21, but I was like, all right, well, I don't know nobody down there. So, yeah, I don't know any good connections. So I'm going to need to get everything that I got, and we'll see how it works out. And I was in an apartment with 4 guys, and just had to do. I did an internship, got a job, met my ex-wife, and the rest is history. I mean, it takes some getting through, but if you have the gall to sit there and go, this ain't working for me anymore. Like I lived in Atlanta, I moved to South Carolina. Got into some trouble when I was about 18, 19, continued to get into just a little bit of trouble, but enough to where it was like, this ain't working for me anymore. I got to jam, and I came down here with didn't know a soul, and just had to make it work. And I've been down here for 9 years, and it's,
great.
Sometimes that's what it takes, and I don't want to crap on anybody's situation. And I know all of my families lives everywhere else. My closest relative lives 6 hours from me, and it's not easy. But I
understand too, though.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too off topic. I mean, none of this is stopping police brutality, but it is helping to stop a hopeless mindset. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Some of my greatest quotes when Pac was talking about like the hopeless feeling, and I'm like, he's like, I want to speak to those are the people I really want to speak to. I'm like, man, I get that.
That's right.
Don't get to that comfort level with your hopelessness. You got to do something, man.
Well, I think that hopelessness creates a certain amount of complacency, and the term I hate the most is, it is what it is. No, it's not. It's what you allow it to be, because once you say it is what it is, you're accepting the circumstances as they are. Now, to get back on the fear is false evidence appearing real, and it's the fear of the unknown. Like, once we venture out and we do that thing, we don't know how it's going to end, and we get through it, then that leaves a new option for us. But I think that what happens is that people don't explore different options on ways to handle things, and they do the same things the same way over and over and over again, good, bad, or indifferent. Even if the ending is good, bad, or indifferent, it's because they know how it's going to end. It's that fear of, oh my God, how is this going to happen? And I always say, I don't want to survive anymore. I know that's not a suicidal ideology. It's, I want to live, because through survival mode, you're always holding your breath going, I hope that works. And there's a lot of uncomfortableness that comes with that, not knowing, especially when you have, children that rely on you. We had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, Alvin Tucker, really, really nice guy, 25, no kids, graduated in communications, and he's doing, some wealth management type of things. And a lot of the propaganda and rhetoric, which I respect him greatly, is that, I'd rather be $100 short on my rent than miss out on $100 of my future. And I'm going, wow, like, when you have kids, you can't be $100 short on your rent.
Yeah, that's something that you and I really see eye to eye on. And that was really what catapulted me into making this hardcore. There's a lot of days. I mean, dude, there's days where you want to hang it up. There's days that it becomes too much. There's days where you feel like you've been beating your head against the wall for years on end, and everybody around you is telling you that, why are you doing this? I'm like, look, the best I can do, I backed off of a lot of outward reach in the past year or so, just having more kids and trying to make my home and my family more self-sufficient, and to instill the knowledge that I have into my kids, because that's what it's about for me. Like, I can't fail them. even if nobody else buys my stuff, I know that they know that I buy what I'm trying to preach to them. You know what I mean? So by doing that, hopefully they can be ahead of the curve, because once they, I got another 10 to 12 years and they're going to be doing their own thing, and by that time, it's up for them to save the world, not me anymore. I can only do what I can do at the time. And that whole, it is what it is. It's like, no, that's stupid. People say that. I'm like, well, it's been like this forever. And what do you think? You're going to change the mind of everybody? I said, no, I really don't. But I know that I want to live my life a certain way. And any inch forward towards that goal that I can take, that I can make, I'm going to take it. Like, I don't settle for this. Like, there's so many people that are like, it is what it is. No, it's not. Like, I'm not satisfied with the world the way that it is. So I'm going to make it the way I want to. And anybody else that thinks that I can't can kiss my ass, because I'm going to do it one way or another, or get close to it. Because I'm done.
I think the thing that needs to be brought back to, though, in all of these situations where these people are shot and killed by police, is the fact that there is a constitution in place with a Bill of Rights that don't give us rights, but protect and guarantee we have certain rights. The Fifth Amendment says we have a right to due process, and the Sixth Amendment says we have a right to trial by jury. Now, I just want to go over real quick something, and it's the oath of honor for the police. On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always uphold the Constitution, my community, and the agency I serve. With these police shootings, especially with unarmed civilians, this is not happening. If they committed crimes, if Tony Robinson was acting so irate and assaulting people, he should have been afforded the right to due process and afforded the right to a trial by jury. I can guarantee you that unless he killed somebody and there was the death penalty in Wisconsin, he would have not gotten the death penalty for the crimes that they're saying he allegedly committed. So it's all about getting him to due process. Look at the man that just shot that one police officer, which I'm devastated about that. This is not an anti-police propaganda or rhetoric. I am devastated by that. But that man was apprehended and put in jail. He will get due process, and he will have a trial by jury, and most likely he will either spend his life in prison or he will get the death penalty, which I'm not a proponent of. But that is a case where due process was given, and he was absolutely a proven threat to those officers because he shot one of them. So I think that if he would have been shot, it would have been deemed justified just because he was a proven threat.
Yes. Right. I mean, that was already, we're not sitting here advocating that every single police encounter, that there aren't people that will attack police officers just like they'll attack a regular person on the street. We all know that there's people that are thieves and aggressors and whatnot out there, but we're also coming to a point where, I hate to go back to another Pac reference in the same interview or whatever, but he says, it's like, if I'm beating on the door every single day, and you're telling me that wanting food, and you're telling me that there's no food in there, and you open the door and there's people flinging pizzas around and just having a food fight, and you're telling me that there's no food. Well, in another couple weeks, it's going to be, we are hungry, please let us in. We are hungry, please let us in. 2 more weeks, it's going to go, we hungry, we gonna need some food. And then the next week it's, we're banging down the door. And you said 2 more weeks from there, I'm picking the lock, coming through the door, blasting. So you understand the progression of this. Like, this is nothing new, especially to certain communities. This is decades in the making. This is not just some new phenomenon since everybody had a camera on their phone. And I think that's very important to note, that this is not just a new phenomenon just because people have cameras on their phones now. This is something that's been especially rooted in African American culture for a long time, and mainstream America, probably something like Rodney King was the first time, and that was pretty much like an LA thing. That wasn't just happening like all over the country, but that was like the first time that like mainstream America knew that there was like a issue, and like, oh man, that's not Andy and Barney that I grew up with in Mayberry, you know what I mean? And people started taking that kind of route and going like, what is going people LAPD is crazy, so at least opening the window to those door, to how all of that goes. So it's like, how long do you expect us to put up with it before people react? Like, right. We see, right quick, we see all of these other things, and if you just so happen to brush away from a cop, let alone if they're bashing your brains in and you dare to throw a punch, even if it's unwarranted. I'm sorry, but a shiny badge and a uniform or a costume, for some odd reason, law states that you are to shun your natural instincts to protect yourself from physical violence.
You're not allowed to be a human being anymore.
What now?
You're not allowed to be a human being anymore. And with autonomic responses, as far as, of course, you're, like Eric Garner, like I've said before, somebody comes up from behind me and puts their arm around my throat, I'm going to be thrashing to get them off of me. It's not conscious. It's a subconscious action in order to protect my own survival. And I don't understand why it is that they can strip that human reaction from us and criminalize it when they say, well, cops are only human. I mean, their reactions to, oh my gosh, I was in fear for my life, are justified, but ours are not. I don't get why there's this separation, because Pelian principles state that the police are the public and the public are the police. We're supposed to be working together, not against one another.
And that's just not the case anymore. It's just not. They've stripped. It's another conquer and divide tactic where, excuse me, that this is not a racial thing. More than ever, it is not a racial thing. It is protecting your own, and the police are on one side, and the people and the peaceful people are on the other, and the hero worship and everything else in between. The public and the media outlets have done a tremendous job of making sure that everybody is divided, and no matter what these people do, they are granted a certain amount of humanity, or not humanity, but immunity to do as they wish. And the talks of federalizing police only progress that ideal further. And the worst part is that for a number of years now that I've been doing media and radio, we've had this constant talk of police brutality and talking about, well, when the stuff really goes down, man, like are the cops gonna side with the people, is the National Guard gonna pull their guns on peaceful American people? Yes. And I'll tell you why.
They already are.
The hell yes.
They are not going to put their paycheck aside for them to have to not feed their families and not figure it out on their own. They will not put that aside, because that will be in the back of the mind of everybody that has to pull a gun and pull a trigger on an American citizen.
If the old adage goes into play here, history repeats itself. And we do have a reference of this happening before. It didn't happen on this soil, but it happened, across seas in Germany. And this is a lot of what's playing out now through society, is a lot of what played out through Germany before and during the time that, Hitler was taking his rule and reign over Germany. And we're seeing the same thing with the police state. We're seeing the same thing with the propaganda. We're seeing the same thing with the mindset of people, that they think that, oh, things are fine. They're getting better because they're believing the propaganda, when things are inherently getting worse every day. I mean, economically speaking, these guys and girls that are in blue and in their military uniforms, you know, in a collapsing economy, they're not going to put down their weapons, or in a martial law state where that is the only bread and butter that is being given. They're not going to put down their weapons and say, hey, you know, I'm going to go with the side of the people and not feed their family. No, they're going to opt for that comfort and, you know, security of knowing that their families are going to be taken care of, even if they have to go, you know, quote unquote, take care of business.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are going to not feel great about it, but at the same turn, there's been such an initiative in the post 9/11, especially America, and post 9/11 America. There is such the initiative to put all of their eggs in the law enforcement and or military basket.
You're absolutely right. And I think that I want to key in on what you said. They're not going to feel great about it. It's you know, it's definitely a part of well, I can say this. I don't believe that the government wants them to feel great about it. I just think they want them to feel justified.
Right. Hey,
and that's where I say we have to.
We can't have anarchy. You know, you're gonna save American lives by these political dissidents. You know?
Yeah.
But also, listen now, a lot of these police also are under the assumption that they have these great pensions and a bunch of things as far as rewards for their service. And those things are gone. And so when they find out that they go to retire and that's no longer there, and that they go to send their kids to college and that's no longer available, do you think that they might not say, oh, wait a minute, I've been doing this for nothing and, you know, there's a problem with this?
I'm so glad that you brought that up, and I got to jam here in a minute. I got to finish up dinner for the kids, but if you're a government employee, remember that money was stolen. Your paychecks are stolen from somebody else's money, and in the past 15 years alone, we have seen an enormous influx of government-held positions that are getting nothing done. And if your pension is rooted in a governmental system, guess what pension can get reached out to and snagged up easier than anything else? A government pension. Right. They can just say, hey, sorry, man, we need it for the war effort or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, they can just say that we need this for whatever and snag it right out. We gave you the money in the first place. You should be thankful you even have a job in this crappy economy. You know, like that's that.
And that's exactly what they're going to do.
This is the lies and garbage that they feed everybody. But I got to jam, guys. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Go ahead and do your plug real quick.
Yeah. I've in another 3 hours. I'll be on Raz Radio Live and jrevradio.com as well. And anytime you want to come on too, you guys reach out to me. This is something I feel passionate about, and I try deeply not to make every show about this issue.
Believe me, I know how that feels.
Anytime you guys want to reach out, I'll be around. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm taking it out on a music break, and we will see you guys in about 5 minutes. Have a good one.
Dear God, I'm only one person. I can't do this all on my own. But you just give me a helping hand, then we can save this place called home. And God, if you give us some strength and some faith and help us come together, so we can save the world. Amen. Save the world. We gotta save the world. Save the world. We gotta save the world.
I never thought about saving the world until today. I can't imagine living in a world filled with hate. The devil the only one with a familiar face. Sometimes I'm afraid what I say may seal my fate. JFK, MLK, they killed the greats and put a puppet on stage just to fill their place. Talking about change, but they ain't still the same. Instead of feeding the hungry, they more concerned with building banks. Strip me in my rights, bare name. Can you feel my pain? We in the home of the brave. Is freedom supposed to feel this way? If you say maybe you crazy, is you really saying you can stop your wicked ways? Just don't lose the will to pray. At times I wanna run away to outer space as long as the world is correct. uninterrupted, I must remain. As soon as we hit the ball, we out at first base. Join hands no matter the race, we got a world to save.
We gotta save the world. We gotta save the world. We gotta save
The reason they can't see is cause they don't believe. The whole world is coasting down a slope that's steep. How the hell we gon' climb out a hole that's deep? Spending billions of dollars on a war overseas, even though it seems we ain't even close to peace. It's like everybody waiting on the Pope to speak. Underneath, he's unleashing a ferocious beast. They cracking up laughing like the joke's on me. How can I save this world when it's only me? It's millions of people way beyond poor to feed. How they ever gonna achieve all their hopes and dreams when they scared to go to sleep? It's cold in these lonely streets. Oil spills polluting lakes, oceans, and seas. Water from the sink ain't even safe to drink. To get the earth clean, we gon' need more than soap and bleach. We going green and beautify the world like it's supposed to be.
We gotta save the world. We gotta save the world. We gotta save the world.
It's only 5 ages, ain't no take 6. I'm looking at this cold world thinking I could save it. Satan looking like alive, but I'm feeling like David. Shot one rock, gotta hit him in his face quick. It's time to come together, no matter what your race is. Put smiles on your face, even if you gotta fake it. For change, I know you're tired of waiting, but be patient. As long as we all stand tall, we gon' make it. We can't let them destroy it, the world is too sacred. On 9/11, the world trades is what the planes hit. The power of one voice, but don't nobody say shh. I wonder if Obama got this song on his playlist. Back to the basics, beginning of creation. As ugly as this become, the world needs a facelift. I don't know how much longer I can take this. We waiting for God to do it. What if it's up to us to save it?
We gotta save the world. 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 Save the world. We gotta 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 save. We gotta save the world. We gotta save the world. We gotta
Ah, that was Save the World by Stradegist Erie, PA, and I welcome back to Keepin and Hunnid. I'd like to thank Tripp, Pugh for coming on with us and, having a great conversation. It's always nice talking to him because he definitely keeps it 100. So, you're back with myself, Diedre B, and Sincere. How'd you think that went? I think he's phenomenal.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, he definitely has an awesome perspective. I've co-hosted for him one time, and I also have been on his show a couple other times. And he's just, every time I talk with him, I'm amazed just because he's so smart and, just has a lot to offer. So I want to talk about a couple things on our topic here is that as of today, yesterday, there was 421 people killed by police in the United States for this year alone. What do you think about that? I mean, that's a lot of people. I know there have been police officers that have been killed, but nowhere near as many that have been killed this year.
It's pretty much easy where I stand on that. It's creating a chilling effect right now where so many people are being killed. I believe the average is like 1 every 8 hours. by police officers. So many people are being killed that it's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up with the cases. It's hard to keep up with the movements because they're all individual movements going on in separate cities, separate states. So it's creating a chaos and creating an unrest. And, instead of a unity, it's creating a separation. And it's instigating the purpose that's probably being set forth anyway, and the agenda that's being set out by the same people. So, I believe what we need to do, honestly, is, and a reason why, just like I work hard extensively on the Philip White situation, but I know that so many others have happened after Philip White, and I believe he was 290, and now you say it's up to 421. So
Right.
we're looking at 131 additional people since March 31st. That's a tremendous number. So, I'm not saying any of those lives didn't matter, but I'm saying that we have to start changing the situation one case at a time. We have to unify together in masses on certain situations immediately and to mobilize immediately to be able to affect change. And I believe that the agenda of the mainstream media is to keep, everything segmented, to not bring light to certain issues that should have light on them. And it's up to us as a people to, start to build these coalitions that are necessary to affect our own change, for these independent media outlets to get together and say, hey, wait, we can help to push some of these agendas and some of these issues in the right direction collectively, because, there's no collectivism among a lot of activists. And I think that's something that needs to change, and not just activists, just patriots and in general American citizens, alike.
Well, and I think that is starting to change. Just like when I was in Baltimore, there were 5,000 to 10,000 people there. I mean, the media will tell you 1,200,
True.
and I'll tell you there were 1,200 before the marches came in, sitting at City Hall. It was just so and they're coming from all over the place, and they're not outside instigators. Like I said before, the outside instigator on April 25th of 2015 was a white baseball fan that was getting drunk and thought it was cool to call 5,000 to 10,000 protesters, which were predominantly African-American niggers and nigger lovers. That is what started it. And nobody is talking to them about the fact that they incited a riot. But you've got an 18-year-old kid who was wrong in smashing a police car windshield, who was charged with rioting, and he $500,000 bond, where the cops involved got $350,000 and $250,000 bonds, and they killed somebody and he didn't. But where is the accountability for the guy that incited the entire thing? Where is that? Like, I'm not saying the response from those which were mainly younger kids. I mean, you didn't really see any grown, 25 on up, acting in that manner. I'm not saying that they should have done that, but there was already a fuel there. And that man just lit a match and threw it right on there. And it put everybody at risk, even the peaceful protesters. I just, and the police just stood there, which I understood why they did. I mean, there were way more of us than there were of them. If they would have moved in, it would have created a hole in a pocket for, areas they were trying to protect. Like, we would have gotten into that baseball field if they would have moved. So, but I think more and more people are coming together, because I don't doubt a woman had written some of her account of that day, which was similar to mine and similar to someone else's. I mean, the variations were where we were at in perspective to what was happening. She had said that one of them went to grab her. She was getting ready to tase him, and two kids jumped in and assisted. I don't think they knew her. So it's one of those things that whenever somebody's arrested, it's cameras up, people screaming, hey, what's your name, to find out who that person was, so there could be some sort of accountability for him being, arrested or assaulted or even kidnapped, for that matter, while protesting. And you got crowds of people, most of them not even knowing who the person was, standing up for that person. So I think that it is happening more and more because most of those people, I mean, I can't imagine Freddie Gray knew 10,000 people.
Yeah,
Even
I
if he had that
believe.
many friends on Facebook, I have almost 5,000, and I probably don't know, a quarter of them.
Yeah, that's just the era that we live in, and I believe it goes back to what I was saying. We have to have a better coalition. And like you said, it's starting to happen that people are waking up and they are coming out in masses from all over the place. Now we have to go to the next level, though. What do we do with these masses of people that are coming out? What do we do with the awakening crowds of people? Because they're awakening at alarming levels, but they're walking into, pretty much a mosh pit of ideas and, a whole new reality that they aren't used to. So if they walk into this arena of this brand new truth for their lives, I believe for those of us that have been there a little bit longer, it's probably, going to start becoming our duty to guide them along the way and to say, hey, this is how you can be effective. You can join this coalition of people to be effective and really in massive numbers start to be effective, collectively, because right now I believe, what the plot of the mainstream media is, especially involving these police brutality cases, is discrediting everyone. So if you discredit people, that and you're demonizing people consistently, and that's the main agenda, that's the main narrative that's going on. That's going to turn away the average middle class guy that's going to come out, from his job or her job and say, hey, I'm going to stand out here and I'm going to stand up for what's right. I'm going to hold the sign up, and spend 8 hours of my day on a Saturday or Sunday in protest. It's going to maybe hold them back a little bit because the main narrative and the main agenda is that these protesters are constantly in a defeated state. When that's clearly not true because more people are coming out, but we have to do a better job as shepherds over those people and say, hey, let's do this all together. Let's do it in this way. I believe, I want to tip my hats to the people in Baltimore because they had one night of riots. Literally, it was one night of riots. And those riots, we know, were instigated. But we've seen the resolve of the people the next day as they collectively came out and cleaned up their city. But, that doesn't get the most play as far as, what the people did together as a community. And, thousands of people came out to clean up the city. More people than there were protesters the day, previous. So that shows that people can collectively come together to affect change. They just have to literally get out there. They have to do it. They have to make it happen and just go forth with their plans.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And the more people are doing that, the more it's getting to where the police are fighting against it. And, we're being deemed, the bad guys, because if we would just cooperate, if we would just, do what we are told, but
yeah, that's right.
but what about the cases such as, I.Ty Gurley, who was just walking down a stairwell and because he didn't want to wait for the elevator and he was shot and killed by police because the police officer was spooked. I mean, what about him? He wasn't told to do anything.
Yeah.
He wasn't, there was no, you have to do this, so you have to do that. They just start shooting because they were afraid. So what happens in those cases? I mean, the guy was charged for doing that. He was a rookie officer. But here's the thing is that once you get to the jury, because the public perception is that police are allowed to do that. Because a lot of us are not feeling as though we want to be police officers because we know that it's a dangerous job. I know I don't want to be one. I'm too old, one, but two, I don't want to be one. And so they think, geez, they're putting their lives on the line. Well, it's becoming more and more the case that citizens are putting their lives on the line by living in their communities, especially if you're in poor, crime-ridden areas. Your life is on the line. All they have to do is think because you're in a certain area, you might have a gun and they can shoot you. And here you can never have had a gun, never have had a criminal history, and all they have to do is be afraid. And that's something that I've talked about before, about the fact that, it's about perception of fear. And when and fear is an emotion. So when you act out of emotion, basically you're reacting, and there's no rational thinking taking place whatsoever. Like, we need to start teaching people and officers how to respond. Response is where rational thinking takes place. Let me think about this real quick. I mean, in the military, I've been told by some people who've been in the military that they're trained to do that.
And not first reactors.
Right. That in the military, they are taught to do that. I'm not saying that they always do, but this one guy came in and said, hey, listen, this situation is way different than it would be if it was a military situation, like the 17-year-old young lady that was Christina Coignard, that was shot and killed in a police department in Longview, Texas. I mean, he said, I would have, as a military personnel, assessed the situation and dealt with it appropriately before I would have shot anybody. Like, I think that, by saying it's the military mentality, that he said it's not necessarily the case. Now, I think it's more the us against them mentality that's causing this to happen. It's us against them. I'm the good guys, they're the bad guys. And not understanding that, your communities probably only have roughly maybe 1 to 5% of bad guys according to the population, and it's not everybody you're going to encounter is going to give you a hassle, is going to be a crook, is even going to be guilty of the offense that you think they might have done. So
That's right.
The public has to start knowing that the police really are acting above their authority. I know they protect us, but the police are the public and the public are the police. And we are supposed to be working in cooperation with one another in order to make our community safer. And when you have this us against them mentality, it breaks those bonds so that no longer are each cooperating with each other. Both are afraid of each other. The police are afraid of us and we're afraid of them. The only difference is they're the ones with the guns. And they're the ones that would be justified in killing us. Now, I am not saying this is a case, so I don't want everybody to get all up in arms. But the gentleman, I think his name was Demetrius something, that went and killed this young officer, 25 years old. Such a sad case in Long Island the other day. With that said, could he legitimately say, hey, I shot him because I was in fear for my life. He has a gun. No, that doesn't hold water. You can't shoot police because they have guns and you think that they're a danger. Now, he wasn't shot, and I don't think that was the case with him. I think that he legitimately was absolutely wrong. I am glad he was apprehended, but if there would have been any situation where he was shot and killed, I would not be doing a radio show calling for any type of justice, and I would have never traveled to a protest for it, because he should have never shot that officer. Like, it's those who are not anti-police, but anti-police brutality aren't saying that in every single circumstance that a cop should just allow somebody to put their lives in danger. But when you have this perception of fear, especially in situations where it may not be warranted, that's got to stop. Like, there's got to be other tactics. Now, with Tony Robinson, was he aggressive? The 911 calls from his friends said yes, he was. But obviously, he was in need of medical attention or psychiatric attention. If Officer Kenny, who had shot and killed somebody previously and got away with it, if he would have had training in order to subdue an unarmed suspect, Tony Robinson would have probably been in a mental ward, getting the help that he needed because he was on psychedelics. He also probably would have been in jail, for whatever crimes he had committed that they said he committed, and due process would have been served. His mom, instead of visiting a grave, might have had to visit a jail cell, but at least her son would be alive. To me, there could have been other things that could have been done in order to assist. if he would have had different tactics in order to subdue an unarmed man, which he said that he was unarmed, he did not see any weapons, he didn't suspect he had any, that basically he was aggressive. If he would have had other ways, if his account is accurate, if he would have had other ways in order to subdue an unarmed man, because clearly he was in need of medical attention or psychiatric attention.
Okay, yeah.
So his mom would be visiting a jail cell, but not a gravesite. And, he would have gotten due process. He would still be here and so on and so forth.
Well, I think you know how I already feel about that. And I said it, before, I am just I'm not an advocate of, these weak cops, these cops that, I'm not saying all cops are weak, but I'm saying that they are hiring a lot more cops that are just, they're just weak, psychologically. I'm not a fan of anyone that's psychologically weak having the capability of discharging a firearm and getting away with it under the color of law. So, I am all for non-lethal forms of apprehension. Now, at the same token, those forms of, non-lethal force, they have been known to be deadly too, such as tasers. But I believe that you have less of a scenario to deal with and a less likelihood for someone to die, if you're using a non-lethal force than something that's just automatically deadly, and that the person, 9 times out of 10 is going to die right on the scene. So, these officers, they're being, taught to eliminate a threat instead of subdue a threat. There's a difference between elimination and subduing. One is literally saying kill. Another one is saying put this person down, but we still want to charge them. So if you have to think about the training, if these guys and girls in blue, if they're aiming at targets all day and the kill zone is the chest, okay? And that's where, of course, they're rewarded, for their skills and their marksman skills and stuff like that, is how many shots can they hit in the chest, okay? That's how you eliminate a threat. So that piece of training right there alone, just that one little piece of training, is detrimental to the mindset of a police officer. Think about it. If you had something in place where you're rewarded for as many shots as you can get in the chest, and that goes on your permanent record to say how well of a shooter you are, as far as eliminating a target, eliminating a threat. If you have that as a reward, think about the flip side of that. What if they changed where that target was on the body and they showed maybe a leg or a knee or something like that? So if a suspect is running towards you, you shoot him in the damn legs if he doesn't have a weapon.
I think that what that leads to, though, is lawsuits also, because of the fact
it may lead to lawsuits, but what shooting doesn't lead to lawsuits? What we're talking about is deaths. We want to make sure that people stop dying. So at the end of the day, what can we do to minimize the amount of lethal force that's being used? It's being used by people that are, excuse my French, they're inherently cowards. So at the end of the day, if the police department is hiring these psychologically already damaged people, already damaged goods, and now they're giving them lethal force and they're rewarding them for using lethal force, and then they're not only rewarding them, but then protecting them, what kind of recourse do we have as a public? I believe our first level of recourse is to remove the lethal threat and say, hey, you guys have all kinds of forms of non-lethal force. Get some body cameras, get some tasers, and use them responsibly. Let's start there.
Well, here's a really good here's a point, though, as to Officer Kenny in the Tony Robinson case, who didn't use a taser first, is that it is their policy that you cannot use a taser unless you have backup. So basically, if an officer comes by himself and does not have any type of backup and perceives threat or is in danger, they cannot use the taser. They basically, the only option that they have is to shoot you. And, you know, with the thing, I like the 911 calls, I really do. And I like the fact that you can call 911 and explain the situation. But I think all too often, like, there's already this perception of what is going on when the cops get there. So they already have some sort of biased opinion on how or expectation of how it's going to go down when they show up. So they're prepared for it. Rather than saying, okay, I'm going to go and make sure everybody's safe. And this gentleman obviously needs help or he needs to be detained. And I'm not going to have any issue doing so. Look at the cop that, you know, a lot of police officers are coming out and saying that you shouldn't have done this. But this man had already killed 2 people. And he had a gun pointed right at the officer. And he just kept saying, hey, put down your weapon. Put down your weapon. Put down your weapon. And he even fell. And he still got up and said, put down your weapon. And the man ended up on the ground with his gun, didn't even shoot, and that was it. I mean, maybe his expectation was different of how the encounter was going to turn out. I don't know, because I didn't talk to that officer, but maybe it's the expectation that, because I personally think that how we perceive a situation is how we're going to react to it. Not respond, but react to it. If you and I had this huge blowout fight and I see you again, I'm ready for you, man. And so whether or not there was going to be an issue, I'm already expecting it. So my tone of voice, my body language, the affect, what I say to you, how I look at you is all going to be reflected on how I expect that encounter to be. And then you, of course, are going to respond to the way that I have already initiated the response to you. And then that's where the issues keep going. So I think that a lot of times what happens is the officers have these expectations of how it's going to go down from what the dispatcher says, just like in the Tamir Rice case. Now, they said it wouldn't have made a difference if they would have said it was a fake gun, or it's probably fake, which is fine. But the expectation, and you can tell if at 1.7 seconds when the boy is lifting up his shirt to show it's a fake gun, they roll up on him and start shooting. 1.7 seconds. That's not enough to say 3 times, put your hands up, put your hands up, put your hands up, and for him to comply. It's not. And then when he gets blamed, we're expecting a 12-year-old to have the mindset of an adult, to know exactly what to do and exactly how to conduct himself in a public place. And although to a certain degree that is the case of a 12-year-old, when it comes to police encounters, how do they know? He's never encountered a police before. He was never in trouble with the law. He was just a kid.
Especially a police officer that rolls up and in 1.7 seconds shoots you.
Right, and he was probably more likely
There was no
scared.
chance for conversation.
Nothing. And now I had the opportunity this week. My son was asked to perform at in Cleveland at a Unity in Youth hosted by Romeo Barnes, and it was a conversation on violence within the communities. It's an anti-violence movement that he runs with youth, and 2 Cleveland police officers were there. And when they were talking about the Tamir Rice, because that's a question that the kids, I mean, it was right in their community, that's a question that they had about that. And they said that there were kids in the rec center, so what their thinking process was to block him off so he couldn't, because they initially didn't know it was fake, to block him off so he could not run into the rec center and possibly take lives of small children. They automatically thought he was 21, though, which, you know, does it go to show the perception of African Americans, you know, as far as how they're perceived, like they must be older, they must be more dangerous, and so on and so forth. Is that where that's coming from?
Yeah, they're the big enemy. It's like the big bad wolf complex. It completely, you know, the narrative is always the same because the brainwashing is the same across the border. We've seen, you know, it's been exposed that in government, we've seen in videos, you know, where they've, for training practices, I believe it was somewhere down in Texas, for training practice, for targets, they've had women and children as pictures, women and children, civilians as pictures, you know, so instead of our government, you know, and I'm talking about our police and I'm talking about our military, instead of them collectively together saying, hey, we have to be compassionate in the way that we approach situations when it comes to taking lives, right, and protecting lives, instead of them being compassionate, we're seeing an effect. It's a chilling effect of everyone. Everyone is a dissident, everyone is a target, and they need to be eliminated if they don't comply. That is a police state mentality. That is not a compassionate mentality of something that's representative of a democracy. It's not something that's that our forefathers would have stood for. That's why they never stood for gun confiscation. So we're seeing a lot of gun confiscation going on. We're seeing, you know, massive levels of that going on. Gun laws changing left and right because we're being marginalized as citizens as far as our access to weaponry and arming ourselves, even though constitutionally that's what we're supposed to do. But as far as arming ourselves, but yet these guys, the government, you know, like I said, the police and the military, they are literally militarizing themselves, all of them, and arming up, you know, like never before. It used to, you know, you would have a standard issued police weapon. Now all these guys have rifles. There's a bunch of snipers. There's a bunch of militarized armored vehicles. I mean, come on, man. Most normal small cities and small towns are not going to have the need for you know, federalized SWAT force. Pretty much, it's just not, you know, happening like that. There's not that amount of crime just running rampant in small towns. So what we're seeing is, you know, a ramping up of the us against them mentality, and you know, the disarmament of the American people, and also the propaganda that's being brought with that. You have to question the motives and the agenda behind what you see. This is not, you know, just a situation, oh, it's just, you know, to support government and to keep things going. No, it's a part of a much bigger plot, and it sucks to say it, but this is not the end of it. We are literally only spending a couple hours every week talking about one small portion of what's going on. And that's great. We're giving our contribution, you know, of our time and our intelligence and our research back to the public. But I think we should also, you know, start to comment a lot more on the issues that surround this police brutality, because it's so encapsulating, and it's going to affect everyone eventually one day, just like it did Germany before. It will affect everyone one day, that people are going to want to have this information.
Yes.
Hello?
Hey, Uncle Kevin, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. Hey, I'd like you to meet my other host, Sincere. Say hi to my Uncle Kevin.
Hey, what's going on, Uncle Kevin? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
All right now. Great to meet you.
We've been talking about, you know, like I talked to you earlier about the, you know, police shootings of unarmed citizens. So far, as of today, we have 421 for the year 2015, average of 3 a day. The other day, they actually killed 6, and that's approximately every 8 hours. Like, what is your take on that?
It's not a good thing, and I don't know all the cases, you know, and unfortunately, so many of them happen that we never hear about, and then some get sensationalized. So, you know, I guess I'd have to see the case. I hate to see anybody unarmed shot. It doesn't seem like there should be much need for that, you would think. And I mean, I live in a rural area, and the police here usually have more than one officer there that can handle whatever situation they have.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, I don't know that it's fair to say that every single police involved shooting is not justified.
Right.
There's a gentleman who had, you know, shot and killed a police officer, and he was apprehended. But if he would have been shot, I can't say that I would have. I mean, I'm upset about any loss of life. I mean, let's get that straight. But I can't say that I couldn't say that was justified, because obviously it was a clear and present danger to, you know, the officer.
or anyone else.
Or anybody else. Exactly. So the fact, I mean, that took a lot of restraint. The fact that they were able to apprehend him, instead of shooting and killing him. I'm more concerned with those that are unarmed, because I think about the Constitution with the Fifth Amendment, our right to due process, and the Sixth Amendment, it's the right to trial by jury. And if gentlemen such as Tony Robinson, who is just shown to be under the influence of psychedelics and excessively aggressive, that if other tactics would have been used, that although he might have been in jail because he was committing crimes like assault, that he still would have been alive. And instead of visiting a grave on Mother's Day, his mom could have been visiting him.
Right. Yeah, we definitely have plenty of non-lethal ways to subdue people. And I know sometimes under drugs, their strength is increased, and if they're a strong person to begin with, but still.
Well,
with the equipment we have, we should be able to subdue people without death being the only answer.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. And like
That's
I
right.
was just saying with Sincere, one of the things in this case is that in order to use a taser, you have to have backup. So if they come alone, like, your chances of being shot are increased, just because if they perceive the situation to be dangerous and there's no one there as far as backup, they cannot, per policy, tase you.
That's silly.
So we have a bad policy.
Right.
That's right.
Or maybe we're understaffed.
And you make really great points about that, and that's why I like talking to you, is because I know there are some things that we definitely don't see totally eye to eye on, but we always get to the root of the situation, which we usually always agree on, is that lack of maybe personnel, which is a really good point, or bad policy. So if that were the case, why would they not make it so that each officer has a partner with them at all times? I see the reason for backup with tasing, though, because if it doesn't work, you need somebody ready to be able to take other means necessary. You have to.
Guys, I think we also have to, as we were talking to, our other guest, Tripp, you earlier, have to recognize that this is nothing new. None of this is anything new than the police batons and the fire hoses of yesterday. This is we're up against the same monster, up against the same beast, and in 50, 60 years of understanding this, if we haven't figured out how to write up a simple policy to protect the public, now we have to, it's kind of the responsibility of us as the public and as people that view the situation to look a little bit deeper than what's on the surface of the present times, and to say, wait, this is a problem that's been going on a long time. Why? Why haven't we figured out how to get simple policy right? A simple policy that affects everyone. And I think you'll come up with some pretty alarming answers, that don't fit the narrative, of the base narrative that we can give this situation if we just look at it through the present lens.
Any comment on that?
The narrative is the problem. So conditioned, we're being played. All the United States citizens are being played by our government against each other, whether it's religions, whether it's race, whether it's rich or poor.
Mm-hmm.
And politicians actually have no need to change any of the policies. Things appear to be going the way, obviously, all our elected officials want.
Well, because it's protecting them. I mean, the police really were put in place in the first place to bring slaves back when they escaped. And I also think to protect the rich and our politicians from, disgruntled citizens that aren't happy with, policies and bureaucracy.
Communities.
Excuse me?
And the selected communities. We see the same things happening now, and even when, riots and things of that nature, or protest or march ensue, certain communities get protected. Well, why are those communities getting protected? Because I'm sure, the mother or father, the black mother or father that has 5 children in a household in a lower income family, I'm sure they want the police to stand at their, their base of the street and say, hey, we don't want any protesters or marchers here. So, you see this theme being played out where police protection is literally being paid for, is being paid for by the highest taxpayers' dollars, and those are the ones that are being protected the most. So, those people don't want to be subject to the petty whims of the lower economy people that they have all these gripes and concerns that things are going wrong, so they don't even let protesters and marchers go into neighborhoods where where they're quote unquote not supposed to be. It all speaks to the level of the police being paid for by the highest payer, the highest taxpayer.
Well, if you remember too, when we had Ford, one quick second, we had Ford on, he was there at the Baltimore protests like I was. We'd seen each other there. He said they have these huge lines of police that were following marchers and blocking them off. And as soon as they got to the poor area, they opened up and let the marchers go through there. And that's when all the rioting and stuff took place. So they didn't protect those citizens. I mean, and you saw when CVS was burning down right on CNN, you could see a line of cops sitting right there watching them do it. I mean, because they were just, the poor area was just getting it. It didn't matter. And I don't understand.
And the thing is, not all those protesters were from that neighborhood. Some of these people are outside agitators coming in, I think.
Well, and here's the thing. Let's be fair. Is that there are a lot of people that are coming in that aren't agitators. Like there were 5,000 to 10,000 protesters on the 25th when starts of a riot had taken place, and I was one of them. And I can tell you there were probably about only 30 people out of 5,000 to 10,000 that were actually causing a ruckus. I mean, we can't consider blocking streets and things like that as rioting. That's just an act of civil disobedience to bring attention to the problem. But I really seem that a lot of those kids with the CVS and stuff were actually from Baltimore. The police had stopped the transportation home from school at the mall, so they had no way to get home and they were stranded.
Insane. You asked me to be on, and I'm like a huge conspiracy theorist sometimes.
Hey, nothing wrong.
No,
with
but you are awesome.
Let me just say this. I don't think that the poor communities in the inner cities, I don't think that's an accident. I don't think it's an accident that the schools aren't very good there. I don't think it's an accident all those people have to live there in poverty. And I don't even know that it was an accident that there's drugs in those communities. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's been a grand plan to let's keep all the poor people in the city and don't let them get educated well and give them easier ways to make money, but it's going to be against the law. And
right. And here's the thing. If you think of Marx's Communist Manifesto and his conflict theory, he said that when there's a competition for the resources, the elite will remove the undesirables from that competition by confining them in ghettos. And what better way than to keep them poor, make activities in which could pull them out of poverty illegal, and confine them to those areas to where they have no hope and they have no help and nothing. And so if you look back, Marx was a really, really old sociologist. I mean, a long time ago, and he's got it right. I mean, there's more going to the rich, even when it comes to welfare. I mean, a couple of years ago, I did the statistics, and I'd have to do them again, but $94 billion goes to corporate welfare, which consists of about 300,000 people and 1% of the population, where the other, millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of people, is only 54 billion. And not every one of those people use the welfare system, but it's way less. Like corporate welfare, it's disproportionate on the percentages on who gets what, and they get the most of the resources, and then they rob us for our resources by inflating rent and utilities that you have to have in order to maintain an apartment. I could do without electric, but if my electric got shut off, I'm homeless because in my lease I have to have it. Gas, I could do without gas, especially in the summer. But if I don't have it, I get evicted because it's in my lease. I have to have it. So they lock you into all of these bills that you have to pay, no matter whether or not and these are necessities. They lock you into the necessity for survival.
Let me get in right here. This is I'm going to continue on what you're saying, Diedre. I just want to confirm what you're saying. This is all called economic slavery. And it boils down to what you were saying earlier. It's a matter of division. Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, blacks, whites, Christians, Muslims. It's all a matter of division. So we're all set and we're all pitted against each other, and we're all pitted against each other in this grand scheme of things. Listen, here you go. When you're talking about economic slavery and constantly being in the system of paying, and then just about 50% of everything you make, you're going to pay in taxes to the day that you die. So when you're stuck in this system of consistently paying, you can never become economically free. If there was a plan set in place, listen, I'm a normal guy, a middle-class American. I don't have anything special. All I have is my voice. I'm very proud of my voice, and I'm very thankful for the life that God's given me. I'm about to say something in the next 30 seconds that needs to be talked about. And it's a simple conversation that I'm not a rocket scientist, but if we really had the intentions of, setting people free from economic slavery and empowering people, we would do these things. 1, landowners. You would own your own piece of land. 2, affordable housing. You can build housing out of storage containers that look freaking awesome now. So there's no reason for anybody to ever be homeless. A storage container costs $2,000. 3, renewable energy. There's no reason in God's green earth why at least 50% of the United States is not on renewable energy sources now. Solar panels are cheap. Batteries are cheap. People get $2,000 to $8,000 in tax returns. That's more than enough to put your home, at least hook it up to be solar compliant. You no longer have to pay an electric bill anymore. So we have so many things to talk about. And I said those in 30 seconds that if there was truly a plan in place to empower people and to move people forward, they will look into those options. Those options would be implemented through policy and through planning. But instead, those options are being left for the elite. They're being left for the people in the communities that they want to have this, instead of the people in the poor communities that need it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right about that. But the other thing is that you have certain states, I believe, like Florida, where people were using rainwater for their water source, and it's illegal to do that. Like when people try to go off the grid, they make it illegal because they force you in order to participate in that bureaucracy and policy that makes somebody else rich.
Economic slavery.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and it's the same thing with people that try to get off the grid to actually not have utilities. Then they're harassed by the feds all the time for different things. If you actually have a self-sufficient home, you're going to be a target because you're a danger. Well, you're not submitting to the slavery, basically. If you're living off the grid.
Well, then you're the bad guy too, because you're not participating in that economy.
You guys need to look up a case in North Florida. It just happened, I believe, sometime within the last 6 months to a year. Guy got caught living off grid, quote unquote caught living off grid. And they didn't like his conditions, deplorable conditions. He was miles and miles and miles away from anybody in the woods. Nobody knew he was there for the longest time. Him removed from the area, and the way that they got him removed from the area, and this is a landmark case, that's why I'm telling you to look it up. The way they got him removed from the area is they used it under UN law. They didn't use United States law. They used United Nations law to say that any citizen that's under the United Nations needs to be hooked up to the electrical grid and have operational services to their house. So we're in trouble, and a lot of people don't understand what kind of trouble we're really in. Right now, they've moved the level and they've moved the ante up to the level of UN law. We don't even, we're the United States. We abide by our Constitution. And for us to be abiding by some kind of global law that we didn't even agree to, that speaks to the level of criminality that's going on in the higher political realms and the higher banking realms that, you know, we really need to be combating, but yet people are stuck, you know, between the issues, black, white, Christian, Muslim, Democrat, Republican, and they're missing completely missing out on the fact that they're losing all their rights.
And that's all but by design, of course, that all this division is happening. Keep us fighting over stupid, petty things instead of actually. And our leaders are never going to help stop this or help it, because they're the ones that's creating this whole nightmare that we're in. And so we can all stand together as Americans and do something about it. You know, forget all the names, I don't care how you vote. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you are. If you need a hand and I see you on the street and I can help you, I'm going to help you. You know, that's just me. That's the way I am. And I belong to some different organizations, and we're definitely concerned about the state of the nation and where we might be going, and it's not good. And unfortunately, too many Americans are fat and happy, and the people I talk to, they're just unaware of anything that's going on in this country. And it's just like, well, it doesn't affect me. I said, well, it don't affect you now, but it's going to affect you later when you're in a camp somewhere with 2,000 other people and you have nothing.
Yeah. You're sitting in a FEMA camp somewhere, you know, as a dissident, you know, and you have nothing. Then you'll say, oh, wait, I wish that I would have got involved in the issues 5 years ago and tried to affect change. Maybe I wouldn't be here now.
Absolutely. And the problem is that the rich are the ones making the rules. And we're all expected to follow it because we don't have enough money. We don't have enough people. I mean, there are way more of us than there are them. And, you know, just like Baltimore showed, listen, 10,000 protesters, way more than their police force. If the strategy would have been different as far as the protesters, and they wouldn't have thinned out and went on in different paths like they did, because the police waited for it to thin out so that they could, you know, surround and do what they needed to do. There would have been nothing. I mean, look at Tahrir Square. They had 10 million people when the guy was the Arab Spring, when the guy set himself on fire because he was smacked by a police officer. The next day, 10 million, not 10,000, 10 million people took over the square and demanded for Mubarak to and they don't have the right to protest like we do. They don't have the same, you know, human rights that we do. And I don't get with all these rights in place that we have, you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And you can see slowly but surely that they are trying to hone in on those. And we need more people, whether it's directly affecting you or not. You need to start standing up for something, or you will fall for anything.
I agree.
Now we are running out of time. We got 4 minutes. Uncle Kevin, it was so awesome talking to you. I definitely want you to get on next week when, you know, my Skype stuff is absolutely the way it needs to be, and talk more about some things. Maybe I'll let you pick the topic for next week. Is that all right with you, Sherrod?
Oh yeah, that's absolutely fine. We got some interesting things coming up, so yeah, definitely.
Just the topic we're on. You guys have probably heard of the 3%ers. I don't know if you have or not. It's a group.
I'm sorry. Say that again. I'm sorry.
The 3% groups.
I've never heard of it.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, basically, in most tyrannies, it only takes about 3% of the population to overthrow a tyranny.
Nice.
And basically, there's 3%er groups all over the United States and all different states. I belong to the one in New York, and what we're trying to do is organize people. The states broke up into regions, and then each region is broken into a county, and you have county leaders, and we're working together and trying to train on how to take care of each other if whatever happens, whether it's a major catastrophe, whether it's economic or political collapse or whatever. So we're just trying to get things organized and get people trained in medical. I'm actually taking some FEMA tests. So if something does happen, they could call on us, and we'd be ready to help whatever we could do. So, you know, it's I absolutely that's the thing we got to do.
I
Next
like what
week
you're
we should
talking
talk
about, and
about
I'm going to
that.
connect with you after the show on that. I will tell you this. I don't really say this much since you honed in on that. I think it's very important what you said, that the FEMA courses and stuff like that. When I was in the military, I actually did get FEMA certification and took courses for first, some of the first responder courses that they offered. But it's just a series of tests, really. But knowing what to do and having that kind of education and that kind of knowledge is important, especially in the times that we're living in. And just before you came on, we were speaking about that actually, as far as having getting together collectively and starting to affect change. And we have so many people's eyes that are opening now that we have to bring them in as people that understand what's going on. We have to bring them in and kind of shepherd them and help hold them and say, hey, look, we know this is a lot of information to take in, but this is how you do it appropriately. And this is how not to get turned off by the information, but, and for it to empower you. So we can do that, and we can reach that 3% you're talking about. I believe we're actually already there, and I believe we just need to bring it all together now.
Absolutely. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
In New York State, they've got a pretty good, actually got a security officer. People are vetted pretty well before they're even admitted into the group, because we don't want any wingnuts in here that are just saying, I've seen other groups and the people are like off the wall. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's like, no, you're not. We're here to organize, to train ourselves so we can better serve each other and our communities.
Absolutely.
We might be the only leader if you live in a small town, you might be the only one that has any clue how to organize things in a disaster. So.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank everybody that tuned in tonight at Keepin in 100 with myself, Diedre B, and Sincere, and Uncle Kevin, now the nickname Unc. That'll be your new, show name. I'm going to close us out with Pallaso and the Mess, If I Try, and we will see you guys back next week, same time, same bat channel, 5 to 7 LMR Radio, Keepin in 100. Have a good one.
I can move mountains if I try. Destined for greatness. If I'm chained, I've got no deep roots. Hey yo, mess coming. If I spread my wings, I could soar just like an eagle. Fly across the world, staring down at all the people. If I tried, I could rid the world of lies and cheaters. Go back in time and stop my best friend from using the needle. I know that if I pushed hard enough, I'd move mountains. Swim across the ocean, not worried about drowning. Sing a couple songs and get the world to stop frowning. Change the world to a place that everyone belongs in. Erase all the poverty, money is only paper. There's no more need for jealousy, stealing, dealing, and haters. Every person had a dream before the world changes. If we learn to follow our hearts and we'd be the greatest. Imagine a world without war, before all this hypocrisy. Government conspiracies and corporate monopolies. Moral ambiguity runs rampant in society. Killing for religion and murdering for democracies. If I try, I can move mountains. If I try, I'm destined for greatness. If I try, I can move mountains. If I try, I'll never fail. I smell blood and tears. Innocent people buried in fear. 2,000 years past, Jesus ain't here. Countries are fighting, the motive ain't clear. The journey getting longer, the weight is getting heavier. The world is perishing and you could be the savior. Your closest friends are the ones trying to fail you. Have faith in God, get on your knees and pray. God help me, make me an overcomer. Give me the courage and the soul of the grinder. Help me rise from 6 feet under. Rise to the sky and capture the thunder. Like the story of David and Goliath. All I need is a heart of a lion. So that even when I'm down, I don't break down. I've been inferior, let me be great now. If I try, I can move mountains. If I try, I'm destined for greatness. If I try, I can move mountains. If I try, I'll never fail. If every person on this planet tried a little harder, cared a little more and pushed a little farther. If every son worships and never disrespects his mother, then more men would stick around longer to be a father. If every president left a precedent of positive change, no more new worlds await us, no more west out to the plains. This our last chance to make it right and everyone's to blame. So grab the key of history and free us from the chains. If you're one of them that's out to make a difference, I salute you. They're fighting for the past, we keep fighting for the future. People have no respect, having sex like Kama Sutra, and love has just become a cold and broken hallelujah. So I pray to God that I can rid the world of all the tears and wipe them from the children's eyes, hear the angels' cheers. Stop wasting all your life lost and stumbling in the void. Guarantee you if you try, people, you could change the world. If I try, I can move mountains. If I try, I'm destined for greatness. If I try, I can move mountains. If I try, I'll never fail. I can go from weakness to greatness, cowardly to braveness. I know I can stand chance. They told me get out of me, go to another stage. You wanna make it, Lewiston is not that place. Made something out of nothing, have you really seen me lately? There felt greatly, but achieved greatly. Cause me on my side, whatever the case been. Daddy cops arrested me, I have the case beat. If I try,